So today's book is called Willpower by Baumeister. What's willpower? What's willpower? If you Google, the definition of willpower is strength. Inner strength, yeah, something like that. Inner strength. In dictionary, they will say the ability to control yourself. So it sounds something like that, lah. But then this author, we call him Roy. This Mr. Roy is actually a psychologist, and then his specialty is actually in researching about what willpower is. Okay, so willpower actually consists of 4 components. Right now, I'm just going to go through this first, and then later through the experience, the examples or experiments, then you can start to understand more. So willpower consists of 4 components. The first one, control of thoughts, right? How you control your thinking. Second one is control of emotions. Third one is impulse control. Impulse control is something like whether you want to eat a cake or not. Suddenly you have the urge to eat the cake or to eat sweet things. So that's impulse control. Then the fourth one is called performance control. Performance control is usually you hear performance control, words like perseverance, determination. So these are words explaining performance control. So willpower usually consists of these 4 things, right? Let's just wait there for a while, and then have you guys heard of this magician called David Blaine? David Copperfield? Huh? That's the David Copperfield is the older version. Huh? David Blaine. So David Blaine he have done a lot of stunts. He have a lot of stunts, and then one of the stunts involved standing at the edge of the building on the rooftop, right? And then for a long time. And then there is one stunt that he was trying to achieve. This one is a Guinness World Record. Was to try to hold his breath for as long as it takes. Some of you might have watched the video. So what happens is he actually broke the Guinness World Record. The previous Guinness World Record of holding your breath was 16 minutes and 30 seconds. 16 minutes, that's a long time. You hold your breath for 16 minutes. So David Blaine was, actually he broke this Guinness World Record by holding his breath for 17 minutes.
In the glass pot?
In the glass pot. Yeah. So he did it when everyone was watching. Of course, before he go on TV and then hold his breath underwater, he did a lot of practice. So while he's practicing, he achieved that 17-minute target. But then, while holding your breath, there are a lot of criteria and components, very important criteria. For example, when David Blaine was practicing, he can easily hold for 17 minutes. Why? Because he was doing it in his room. Nobody was there, everything was quiet. But then when he want to do this stunt, he have to be in front of public. Oprah was there. Everyone was there, standing, sitting there, watching. And then there's a countdown timer, right? And then beside him, near his pot, there's 2 speakers. 2 speakers connected to his heart. That means people can actually hear his heart beating. How fast his heart beat. So the goal was to break the world record, which is 16 minutes and 30 seconds. So he went into the pot. He held his breath. He went into the pot. Now once you're inside the pot, right, you're basically like suspended in the water, underneath in the pot, suspended like that. Once you go in, then problems start to happen. This was when everyone was watching. The problem is, suddenly, now when he's doing that stunt, he realized that a lot of people is watching him. So maybe some fear in it. Nervous, a little bit nervous. And then because the speaker was so near to him, he can actually hear his own heartbeat, right? So the goal when he was in the water, you're supposed to hold it to break the world record, right? So once he go into the water, he's supposed to be very calm. But because of all these external factors, he was not so calm, a little bit nervous. So his heart rate, his targeted heart rate was supposed to be 50 beats per minute. But once he go into this pot, and then hear the sound, the audience making sound, and then those people looking at him, his heart rate actually increased. His heart rate increased from 50 to 100. And then it increased further. Why increase further? Because once he reached 100, he feel nervous already. He don't know whether he can achieve this world record or not. So he continued holding his breath, and then his heart rate spiked up to 150. Once he reached 150, his whole body started to move already, right? Because of the nervousness. And then instead of standing in the pot like that, he unhooked his leg. Once he unhooked his leg, his whole body was floating on top of the pot now. What is he doing? He's preparing. Because if the heart rate continues to be irregular like that, there's a high possibility that he might go into heart attack. So he released his leg. So his whole body is floating now. Of course, his head is still underwater. And then he continued, try to hold his breath as long as possible. And then until he reached a point where his heart rate from 150, suddenly it dropped down to 40. Right? And then he went back up to 100 again. So throughout the whole process, his heart rate is very irregular. Very, very high possibility that he can go into heart attack. And then once he's reaching that time limit, the crowd start to cheer, start to clap. Then he realized he broke the world record. Then he come out of the water. Once he come out of the water, he was very, very weak, and then he had to be sent to the hospital straight away because his possibility of heart attack is very, very high. So did he achieve the goal? He actually did achieve the goal of holding a breath more than 17 minutes. Huh? But it's a high risk. Of course, of a lot of factors, but when he was practicing, he actually can do it, but not with a lot of audience looking at him, interference, yeah. So if you look at David Blaine itself, do you call this willpower or not? Because the definition of willpower is the ability to control yourself. In this case, he managed to control himself. Even though his heart rate was very irregular, he managed to control himself to breathe under the water, hold his breath under the water for 17 minutes. So is this willpower?
Yeah.
Yeah? Huh? In this case, David Blaine, he have a very strong willpower. Right? Is he special or not? Actually, there's no difference from any other human being out there. And then how he can achieve that 17 minutes is because of practice, deliberate practice in this case. So everyone can actually do it, right? You start off slow, and then maybe you work towards 17 minutes, towards 20 minutes. No? So in terms of determination or willpower, we see David Blaine, he have a very strong willpower. So if you consider that as willpower, which also means that willpower is something that we can learn ourselves, and then we can enhance, which means we can get more willpower, right? The more things we do, more training we do, we can actually be better at our willpower. Our willpower can be actually stronger, right? So what the author is saying, willpower at the end of the day, it is like a power bank. You know power bank? To charge your phone, you bring a power bank out in the event of emergency, or your phone battery become low, you poke the power bank, you bring the power bank around. So willpower itself, in the body is like a power bank. We have a certain capacity. So my capacity can be, for example, 2,000. David Blaine's capacity of his willpower can be 10,000 because he practiced so much. And then he tried out so many things, right? He's determined. So his capacity, in this case, David Blaine's capacity of willpower is definitely higher than me. Which means everyone can actually enhance their willpower capacity. So let's look at a few experiments first. The first experiment is the movie experiment. 3 groups of people. The first group, right? All three of this group is going to watch a movie together, and this is a very sad movie. So the first group is the first group were told to suppress your emotion. So if you see very sad scene or you see very happy scene, don't show emotion. So the second group, amplify your emotion. If you see a happy scene, you laugh louder. If you see a sad scene, you cry harder. And then the third group of people, normal. If you want to cry, you cry. If you want to laugh, you laugh. After the whole movie, all three of these groups were then asked to go into a room and do a squeezing test. You know, when you go to gym, you got that hand squeezer thing, right? To squeeze how strong you are in this case. So all three of the group went into the room and start squeezing. Surprisingly, the result came out. People that suppress emotion, when they squeeze, they tend to give up faster. People that amplify their emotion, when they squeeze, they'll give up faster as well, compared to the normal people. So if you are amplifying your emotions, your willpower drops. If you are suppressing your emotion, your willpower drops. But if you are just acting normal, willpower stays the same.
It's meant to be.
Huh? Sorry?
It's meant to be.
So what this experiment is trying to say is, willpower is something like a power bank. You actually use up willpower while doing things. Suppressing your emotion, amplifying your emotion, right?
Meaning extraordinary activity we do for ourselves, the willpower will reduce. The capacity will reduce faster when we do that thing.
Actually, it's
normal.
yeah. Let's look at the next experiment first. Next experiment is called the radish experiment. Two groups of people. The first group, both of these groups very hungry. So the first group was given cookies. Okay? And then the second group was given radish. That's why they call it the radish experiment. Radish is not something you like to eat raw, but in this case, this group have to eat radish, even though they were hungry. So the first group was given cookie, second group was given radish. After the first group took the cookie, after the second group took the radish, they did a puzzle, a hard puzzle, a very hard puzzle. And surprisingly, who gave up first? Maybe you can guess it right already. Cookies gave up. Huh? No. Actually, the radish part. The radish group gave up. Radish. Yes. The cookies group took the cookies and then they persisted in doing the hard puzzle. This puzzle is very hard, hard to solve. So the cookies group persisted for 20 minutes in doing this puzzle. The radish gave up at 8 minutes only. After 8 minutes, they gave up doing this puzzle. What's the correlation here? You compare with the previous experiment. What's happening here?
But the radish was still hungry.
Is that maybe the radish one is still hungry? Okay, now let's look at the third experiment. Then we compare and see what kind of conclusion we can come up. The third experiment, now we do it for animals. In this case, dog. You bring a dog over, right? You play with this dog for 10 minutes. You ask him to sit, he'll sit. You ask him to lie down, he'll lie down. Ask him to jump, he'll jump. Ask him to bark, he'll bark. So you play with this dog for 10 minutes, right? So we have, in this case, the dog experiment, we have 3 groups of dogs. The first group of dog was given sugary drinks. Second group, plain water. The third group, artificial sugar. Okay, and then the dog was given, after playing for 10 minutes, after drinking that sugary drinks, non-sugary drinks, and then artificial sugar, the dog was given like a toy. But then inside this toy, there's a sausage. So this dog can actually extract the sausage out. But the catch is, this toy is built in a way that the sausage can't come out. So they gave it to these 3 groups of dogs, and then they start to realize The first group with sugar, the dog with sugar that drink sugary drinks, they lasted longer. The second group with just water gave up quite easily. And the third group, drinks that have a little artificial sugar, no effect. So the group that lasts longer is actually the group with the sugar group. So you add up these three experiments, what do you see? Huh? Sweet things. Some say sweet things, you say sweet things.
Okay. When people hungry, they give up fast. Because the radish also give up fast. The one that the dog with the plain water also give up fast. And the dog with the artificial sugar also there's no response because they are still they don't know what no response.
Yeah, almost there. So if you add these few experiments up, you start to realize willpower is like a power bank. It will deplete. And then once it depletes, your persistence will drop. You tend to give up faster. Stress will deplete your willpower. Choices will deplete your willpower. And then if we look at, let's say we look at computers. Well, the only way to enhance or make the computer speed faster is to sometimes change the motherboard, change the CPU, change the processor. Maybe sometimes you can change the graphic card and things like that. But human body, if you want to make the human faster, more efficient, what do? Can you change the CPU? You can't change the CPU, you can't change the brain. So what other external factors can you do? For human being, the only thing that you can change is the food intake.
Feed them lah.
Feed them. Exactly. Feed them. Because we know willpower is like a power bank. It will deplete. Alright? So if we human beings, we eat things, let's say whatever we eat, it can be bread, it can be rice. At the end of the day, what will happen to this product that is going into our body? Like bread, rice. This rice will then be digested, turn it into glucose, right? Energy. In this case, energy. So in this case, glucose is a form of energy for the human brain. Same thing for the computer. Computer, you need a power source. Human being, you need a power source as well. In this case, glucose is the power source. Okay? Then the brain, same thing. Do the brain need glucose? The glucose actually don't go into the brain.
Brain need oxygen.
Glucose that is being food that is being eaten will get converted into glucose. Glucose will then be, in this case, filtered or translated into neurotransmitters and then supplied to the brain. So yeah. So when you start to see people with, have you seen people with what is this called? Hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia. That means their blood sugar rate is very low. The average blood sugar rate for human being is around 4 to 5. But then hypo guys, they are slightly lower. Right? And then there are another bunch of people that is very high. They are also called diabetic. Right? They are higher than the average. So the interesting part is, if the intake of sugar can actually change the capacity of your willpower, what happens if you take stuff that is too sweet? Maybe you become diabetic. Of course, it happen over the long term. But what we want to try to understand here is there's these two that is normal, and then there's these two extreme, hypo and diabetes. Right? If the blood sugar is too low, normal. If the blood sugar is too low, then you become hyper. If the blood sugar is always too high, you become diabetic.
Some say that, okay, like orang kampung kan, they eat rice in the morning because they need a lot of energy. That they won't kena diabetes one because they use the energy. They like release the energy. That's why there's no diabetic on them. Even they eat rice every morning. Is it because like for us, because we work in the office, we eat a lot, we sick. That's why the diabetic come to us.
That one I'm not too sure. The diabetes, how to get diabetes, I'm not too sure. But there are people out there that is on the high side, and there are people that is on the low side. So what scientists, what researchers found is those people that is on the low side, the hypoglycemia guys, those people that is on the low side, there is a tendency for them to do more mistakes like traffic violation, double parking, drive faster. Hypo. And then there's a tendency for them to steal in the shop. Stealing. Child abuse as well. And then for people that have slightly higher blood sugar rate, they have a tendency for them to be drink and drunk. They tend to drink a lot more. Anxiety and depression. So these are some of the characteristics. Then after they found out about this thing, the researchers very funny. Went to a prison, waited for prisoners to come out. Because these prisoners, they are released on that day. Once they are released, these researchers went there and checked their blood pressure, right? Their glucose level, and start to realize people or the ex-prisoners, their blood sugar is slightly on the high side. They will fall into this anxiety and depression, and then maybe they'll go back to drinking, and then after that they'll go back to committing crime again. Then people on the low side, same thing. There will probability of them going back to being a criminal is higher compared to the normal blood sugar type. Well, this is very interesting finding. That means the glucose level in the body actually determines a lot of things. At the same time, willpower, your willpower is like a power bank. It depletes after you make certain actions. And then the only way, in this case, the body to increase the willpower is to increase your glucose intake. No? Because glucose is a source of, in this case, energy, and then a source for the brain itself. No? So sometimes when you realize, in the morning, when you wake up, you leave your house, you drive to work, and then if the distance is quite far, maybe 40 or 50 kilometers apart from your house to your office itself, if the distance is too far apart, most likely when you reach the office itself, your willpower is all gone already. You're too tired. Why?